It was a quiet Sunday morning in the small town of Maplewood. Sunlight filtered gently through the lace curtains of the Parker family home, casting warm patterns across the kitchen floor. Emma Parker, a lively two-year-old, with chubby cheeks and a mess of golden curls, was babbling happily in her high chair, her tiny hands reaching eagerly for a piece of toast smeared with strawberry jam. Her mother Claire hummed softly as she prepared a cup of coffee, glancing now and then at the clock. "Almost time for your nap, sweetie," Claire said, smiling as Emma giggled in response. The kitchen smelled of toasted bread and fresh coffee, a smell Claire associated with comfort and safety. The house was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Watching from a nearby armchair was Whiskers, the family's large gray tabby cat. Whiskers had a presence that was hard to ignore. A thick, striped coat, bright green eyes that seemed to miss nothing, and a demeanor that suggested he considered himself both guardian and philosopher of the Parker household. Most mornings, Whiskers would curl up on the windowsill, basking in the sun, or stretch lazily on the rug while Claire tended to the house. But he had a curious fascination with Emma, who often squealed with delight whenever he approached. That morning, however, something in Whiskers' eyes seemed different. His green gaze followed Emma closely as she picked up the toast, biting into it with unsteady toddler enthusiasm. Claire turned her back to wash the dishes for just a moment. In that instant, a piece of toast lodged in Emma's tiny throat. Her eyes widened, panic rising in her little chest. She coughed violently, but nothing seemed to clear the obstruction. Claire spun around just as Emma's face turned red, her small hands clawing at her throat. "Emma, oh my God," she cried, rushing toward her daughter. But time in those seconds seemed to stretch like elastic. Claire had never felt such helplessness, such terror, as she realized she couldn't reach her daughter in time to prevent a disaster. Then Whiskers sprang into action. It was sudden, almost instinctual. The cat leaped from the floor to the edge of the high chair, claws digging in lightly to balance himself. With a precision that seemed impossible for an animal of his size, Whiskers reached out his paw and swatted at Emma's hands. At first, Claire froze, thinking the cat was interfering, but she quickly realized what was happening. Emma's hands, flailing in panic, were pressing against her throat, making the situation worse. Whiskers pawed gently, but insistently, almost nudging her into a posture that allowed her lungs to work more efficiently, forcing a small cough to loosen the piece of toast. Emma coughed again, this time violently, and the toast flew from her mouth onto the floor. She gasped for air, eyes wide with shock, and then started crying. Claire scooped her up immediately, tears streaming down her face as she hugged her daughter tightly. "Oh, baby. Oh, my little angel," she sobbed, rocking Emma as she regained her breath. Whiskers, meanwhile, sat proudly on the high chair, tail flicking as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. His green eyes met Claire's, and there was a spark of unmistakable intelligence in them, as if he were saying, "All in a day's work." It took Claire a few moments to calm down enough to truly notice what had happened. She looked at Whiskers, heart pounding. Did you just save her?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Whiskers blinked slowly, licking a paw as if to dismiss the praise. But in that moment, Claire knew something extraordinary had occurred. News of the incident spread quickly. Claire's neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, had been passing by the window just as Emma had choked and saw Whiskers in action. She immediately called the local newspaper, telling them about the heroic cat who had saved a toddler's life. Within hours, the story of Whiskers' bravery became the talk of Maplewood. By the next day, the Parker home was buzzing with visitors. Porters arrived with cameras and microphones, eager to interview Claire and photograph the legendary cat. Local children came by to pet him, offering little treats in admiration. Whiskers tolerated the attention with a dignified patience, his green eyes observing everyone with a quiet, calculating curiosity. The mayor of Maplewood even issued a proclamation, declaring Whiskers honorary protector of Maplewood, and presenting him with a small, custom-made medal. Claire laughed through tears as she pinned it to his collar. "You've officially outdone yourself, Whiskers," she said, stroking his thick fur. For Whiskers, the recognition was unnecessary. Returned to his usual routines, basking in sunny spots and observing the household with keen interest. But something had changed. There was a new respect in the way the children treated him, a new reverence in the way adults watched his movements. Whiskers had always been a cat with a commanding presence, but now he carried himself with an air of quiet heroism. As weeks passed, the Parker family's life settled back into its usual rhythm, but the memory of that morning remained vivid. Claire often caught herself staring at Whiskers with gratitude, marveling at the uncanny intelligence and intuition he had displayed. Emma, too young to understand the danger she had been in, grew up surrounded by stories of Whiskers the brave, the cat who had saved her life. One afternoon, as Claire watched Emma playing with building blocks on the living room rug, Whiskers padded over and settled beside her. Emma giggled, reaching out to touch his soft fur. Whiskers nudged her hand gently, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. Claire realized then that Whiskers had not only saved Emma physically, but he had also become an inseparable part of her life, a guardian and companion in ways that words could barely describe. The fame Whiskers received brought unexpected joys as well. The Parker family was invited to appear on local morning shows, and a photographer even published a series of heartwarming images capturing Whiskers and Emma together. A local pet store offered to sponsor a small scholarship fund in Whiskers' name, dedicated to educating children and families about pet safety and first aid. Despite the attention and accolades, Whiskers remained humble, continued to follow Emma everywhere, curl up beside her during nap time, and vigilantly observe her during play. To him, it was simply the natural order of things. Protect those you love, stay alert, and act when necessary. Heroism was instinct, not a title. Months later, Parker family organized a small neighborhood gathering to celebrate Whiskers and to thank the community for their support. Children brought drawings, neighbors brought treats, and Claire baked a cake in the shape of a paw print. Whiskers, wearing his medal, accepted admiration with quiet dignity, purring loudly whenever Emma hugged him tightly. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Claire looked at Whiskers and thought about the fragility and beauty of life. She remembered the terror of that morning, the helplessness she had felt, and the miraculous intervention of her cat. "You are more than a pet," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "You are a guardian, a hero, and a friend." Whiskers blinked slowly in response as if acknowledging the weight of her words. Emma, now toddling around confidently with a newfound sense of curiosity, toddled over to Whiskers and hugged him once again. Whiskers nuzzled her gently, his heart, or so Claire imagined, filled with pride and love. He had acted on instinct, on devotion, on love that transcended words, and in doing so had changed lives forever. Over time, the story of Whiskers spread beyond Maplewood. A local author decided to write a children's book inspired by the heroic cat, assuring that his bravery would be remembered for generations. Visitors from other towns came to meet the legendary feline, and Claire often smiled as she recounted the story to anyone who asked. Despite the fame, Whiskers remained the same at heart. He loved the quiet moments with Emma, the soft purrs in the morning, the gentle strokes of Claire's hand. Heroism, he seemed to understand, was not about applause or medals. It was about courage, love, and being present when it mattered most. Years passed, and Emma grew older. She would often recount the story of how Whiskers had saved her life, eyes wide with wonder and admiration for her feline friend. Whiskers, older now, with a few streaks of white in his fur, would still patrol the Parker home with the same vigilant care, a constant presence in the life of the child he had once saved. One autumn evening, as leaves fell in golden cascades outside the Parker window, Claire reflected on the twists of fate that had brought them Whiskers. A small, scrappy cat had stepped in at the exact moment he was needed, saving a life and changing the course of their family's story. In the quiet warmth of their home, she realized that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes the most extraordinary courage resides in the heart of the most unassuming creature. And so, Whiskers continued to live, loved and respected, a guardian, a hero, and a friend. His story reminded everyone in Maplewood that bravery could be small but mighty, quiet but profound, and that the bond between humans and their animal companions could be life-saving in ways no one could have imagined.